Sam Scholl is with us, University of San Diego head basketball coach, entering his second season without the interim tag. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. Sam comes highly recommended from Jeff Goodman. I mentioned his name that I was going to interview Sam on Twitter, and Jeff chimes in, and he says he's a great guy. So I want to ask about your relationship with Jeff and how cool he is. But first of all, Sam, I saw the video of you going headfirst ziplining in Las Vegas. And so my question for you is, how does that adrenaline rush compare to coaching a D1 basketball program?
It was definitely some adrenaline with that, but not nearly as much as standing on a sideline and coaching your team and at places like Gonzaga, BYU, the amazing venues that we, we're very fortunate to have an opportunity to compete in the WCC. And then, so, it definitely a great time. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun thing to be able to experience, but it pales in comparison to the opportunity to coach in great arenas like that.
The great Jeff Goodman has spoken so highly about you, calling you one of the best in the business. Sam, why is he so right?
Jeff's been so good to me. Dating a long time ago when I was just a young, getting his feet wet assistant, probably
Sure.
24, 25 years old. He used to run events, prep school events out in the East Coast. And so went out there and he just, it meant a lot to me because he took an interest in a young assistant. A guy, I didn't have anything. I didn't have any clout or anything going, but he took an interest and we started building a relationship and it was a genuine interest from him. And it's just built, all the way through the years. And he's just been an outstanding friend in this business. A guy that, I know wants what's best for the University of San Diego. He's been great with our team and sharing some great messages with our team. And so
Cool.
I really appreciate his friendship.
What's one message that you remember him sharing with the team that stood out to you?
Well, one of them was he did our game last year against St. Mary's at St. Mary's, and at that point we were last year we were going through a lot of different struggles, and he just shared this thing about how, again, this is, all it takes is one game. All it takes is one game, one performance to get the thing going back in the right direction, because I've seen it so many times with so many different teams where they're able to earn one big win and then it just take off from there. And so his message to our team during our shoot around was just, hey, let's have this be the one game that could get this thing going in a more positive direction.
And I think that is going to happen for your team. Thinking about all the newcomers you're going to bring in this season, I want to ask you about that. Sam Scholl is with us, University of San Diego head basketball coach. I'm Bryan Fenley. Getting to know more about your personality as a coach, Sam, what's one coaching quirk that has caught on with your players the most?
The thing that I've gotten back and feedback from, because I talk to all of our guys about, hey, what can I do better? What, some of the things. And one of the things they just, I put a high premium on urgency.
Okay.
Urgency. That's a big word to me in life. It's a core value of mine. It's a core value of our program. And urgency isn't just a pace of what you do things. To me, urgency is a passion and enthusiasm and a presence to be somewhere to get better, to improve. And so, when guys are moving a little slow from drill to drill, I'm big on getting their urgency motor started. And because I want us to have an active and excited presence about being to the next thing for an opportunity to improve myself.
You're so big on urgency, but looking at your career, I feel like you have done a great job of embracing patience for your own career and waiting for that moment to get the head coaching job. For so many years, you were an assistant. How are you able to embrace that level of just, okay, my time is going to come. It's going to eventually happen. And until then, I'm going to continue to be an assistant. And look at you now.
Well, I think big thing was I was just enjoying so much in that moment, or whatever that time period was. I was enjoying so much the people I was working with and the players I was having an opportunity to coach and the head coach that I was having an opportunity to serve. And so that's what it was about for me. And so it made it very, very easy to have that level of patience and to just be in that moment and to try to be the best version of myself that I could be as a coach, working with those players, working with some tremendous, I mean, some of the guys that I've had an opportunity to work with is amazing. And then obviously the coaches I've had an opportunity to work for. And so that kept it, just kept me very level-headed and wanting to just do the best job I could in that moment, in that season, in that year.
Speaking of notable players that you've coached and been a part of seeing them grow, when you were an assistant at USD with the Toreros in 2002-2003 season, I remember that Matt Delzell explosion game against Gonzaga on ESPN. I remember staying up late at night, and I think I was an eighth grader, so sometime around then, watching that and just being so proud of what you guys were doing in that game. When you go back to that game, where does your mind go?
Just to some absolutely amazing young men that we had an opportunity to be around every day. Not let alone coach, just be around on a daily basis. And I learned so much from those guys, and how they all their selflessness. They bought into their roles. They were stars in their own roles. Matt Delzell knew that his role for our team. He was the guy who played off the ball in his early part of his career, and we switched him to being our point guard that year. Wow. He knew his job and his role on our team as that point guard was to take care of the ball and to make open threes. And he did those things at a high level. I mean, in that Gonzaga game, I believe he went like 5 for something from 3. I mean, and he was just ready for the moment because he understood what his role was, and he embraced that, and he was a star in his role. And, Matt Delzell is one of my favorite players of all time and just one of my favorite people of all time. And boy, I would love to have 100 of him every year.
I remember that same year watching a game when USD went into Pauley Pavilion to take on UCLA, and I was so stoked for you guys because you came out of that game with overtime win. You were an assistant during that game. As you peer back to that one as well, what do you boast about most about how you were able to come out of Westwood and get that W?
I think a big part of that win that kind of, as I look back at, after your question, is experience. Experience came through in that game. I think it was one of the 4th, 5th, or 6th game of the year. We started, Matt Delzell was a senior point guard. Roy Morris was a senior 2 guard. We started a dynamic defender, probably the best defender I've ever coached, in Corey Belzer, who was a sophomore. But again, another guy, as we talked about before, who embraced his role. Mm-hmm. We started a senior 4-man in Jason Blair, and then a senior 5-man in Jason Keat. And so right there, that hit me with a lesson learned of how important at the mid-major level it is to have experience. And we had great experience on that roster with those 4 guys and the starting lineup. And I believe we brought a junior off the bench and another sophomore off the bench. So we had a bunch of guys that wasn't their first time around. That wasn't, the first time playing in a high major arena. They had played against Big 12 teams. They had played against Gonzaga. They had played against those types of opponents in their career. So when they go into a place like UCLA, I think it was top 15 in the country at that moment, they were unfazed. And then they just were selfless and played to their roles and were stars in their roles, and we were able to earn a great win.
Your desire to have experience as it pertains to your upcoming season. I look at all the new transfers you're bringing in. I think what is it, Coach? Is it 6 Division I transfers that you have brought on? More newcomers. You've got some freshmen coming in as well. You perhaps were looking for more experience last year. How will this infestation of new crop of talent and guys who have shown to play well on the Division I level, where do you feel like this is going to boost the program in the right direction?
Well, I think 2 things. Number one, we brought great character into our program. These are, every single guy we brought in is first and foremost, because we'll never sacrifice this, tremendously high character young man, person, student, player, and wants to be the best version of themselves each and every day. And then the second thing, I've learned this. I've spent my whole career in the West Coast Conference. I'm like a WCC lifer. I think Coach Few, Coach Bennett, and Tommy Lloyd are the only 3 people that have been in this league longer than I have. And so what I've learned is that in this conference, through my 20 years, if you're not named Gonzaga, St. Mary's, or BYU, if you look at any other team, not named those 3, that's had success in this conference, in a season or in multiple seasons, you look at their roster and it's all juniors and seniors. It just has great experience. It has great experience on that roster. And that's something that I've learned, that you know, when you're competing in the 8th best conference in the country and against the level of coaches that we have an opportunity to compete against across the board, the amazing coaches and programs, experience gives you an opportunity to compete. And so now have an opportunity to bring guys in that, you know, just if nothing else, understand on a daily basis what goes into winning and how hard winning is. And if we're able to build that experience together under a collective purpose, you know, it can lead to some exciting things.
What did you learn from last season that you didn't learn in all the other years as a coach, that you feel that moving forward will improve your philosophy or give you a new insight into what is going to bring success at USD?
I'm really glad you asked that, Bryan. I mean, that's something that for about 5 months now, I've just been very self-critical. I've really studied why were we not successful? Why did we not maximize our abilities as a team? And I think there was a lot of many mistakes. I mean, Bryan, I made 1,000,001 mistakes last year, and I'm trying my best to learn from every single one of them. But one of the big things that right off the top kind of hit me in the face was the year before in 2018-19. You know, in my first year, we had 4 senior starters, tremendous players. We had great experience. We were fortunate enough to win 21 games and get the first bid in school history to the NIT. So I think one of the first mistakes I made we brought in 7 new guys, was that I assumed that those guys knew what those guys did, knew what those guys were about, knew the values, knew what our locker room was. I kind of assumed that was just kind of that feeling, those values, that mentality was just kind of infuse itself as soon as those guys walked into the locker room. And that just wasn't the case. And so I didn't do a good job of teaching that last year's group. Okay, this is why we've been successful. We had won 20 games the year before. You know, when I was an assistant, we were coming in off 2 20-win seasons. I didn't teach them. I didn't define for them the reasons why that happened, why we were going in an upward trend. I just kind of said, all right, guys, it's our team's turn to take the next step. Well, they didn't know how to take the next step. It was 7 new guys. You know, they didn't know. And so that was a big thing that I learned. And so now we're going to go back to the bare bones. And when we have an opportunity to get our guys all together again, that's where we're going to start this 2021 season off with this group. This is what USD's basketball identity is. These are what our core values are. This is how we want to have our daily success as people, students, and players. And so, you know, that was, I think, that assuming that I did last year was one of my biggest mistakes.
What is that acclimation process like when you get the guys all back together and you lay the groundwork for what you want and your expectations and the culture? How will you use your experience and use what you learned from, like you said, last year to like specifically say, hey guys, this is what we're all about. This is what we need to do. And this is what we want to do moving forward.
Having consistent and never wavering from teaching time. Gotcha. I mean, 30 minutes a day, classroom sessions, team sessions, team activities, where we are defining and being very clear about what our core values are for my program, as long as I'm the leader of it. Sure. For our identity in the locker room as teammates. What's our identity as teammates? What type of teammates do we want to be? And then that pushes over into what our identity is on the floor, offensively and defensively. You know, what are we going to be about? How are we going to score, and how are we going to stop people, and what are we willing to give up defensively? But having, you know, a consistent daily time, breaking down all those things and being very, very clear. I think, you know, again, I've learned many things, and you have to be very clear in your definition. You have to make sure that you just can't say urgency. You just can't say urgency. Like, guys don't know, what do you mean by urgency?
Sure.
You can't just say selflessness. Well, what do you mean? You know, and want to get to the point of where we're helping them understand what that is, and then giving them an opportunity to tell us what they think that is. And so that then we can collectively as a team all come under the same purpose of what urgency means to us, what selflessness means to us, what mental discipline means to us.
Yeah, it's one thing to speak in like superlatives, but then have it be able to relate to the players. Like you said, that is so important. How about this, coach? When was a time when you acted out of character for motivational purposes for your players and it actually paid off?
Oh boy. You know what? I guess the time that pops in my head first is that it was in my first year. And with all those great senior starters that we had 4 of them. Isaiah Pinero was a player for us that ended up playing. He was 2-time All-League player in the West Coast Conference. Played in was a rookie for the Stockton Kings last year, G League. And we were playing. It was probably I think it was the second game in the conference, and I hadn't really raised my voice too much to those guys.
Sure.
I had raised my voice to some other guys, but and collectively to the team, I had raised my voice, but I hadn't really pinpointed those guys. And it was halftime, I believe, of our San Francisco game here at home, and he just wasn't himself. And I think at halftime, I kicked the wall and kind of directed a lot of my frustration with how he was playing, just how he's approaching that game at him. And in the second half, he became a different guy. I'm not a big yeller or screamer. I know who I am. But that was a time where I guess I got a little out of that character and was able to pay off with some success.
Totally. No doubt about it. The question that I was thinking about as well was if there was like a how-to manual for having sustained success at USD and developing a program in San Diego, given the climate of college basketball in the area as it relates to the WCC and all the other prominent programs, what is that roadmap for success? What makes it unique compared to any other stop you've had in college hoops?
I think the big thing, and I think it's something that, we're still trying to crack the code on. University of San Diego, or over its Division I history, has had good teams. It's had several good teams, but I guess the case we're all trying to crack is how do we get it to be where it's consistent, where
Sure.
where you're contending for championships every year, and so I think that as I've been examining that and thinking about that and working on that, I think a big thing is developing that culture that is unique to you. St. Mary's has done that. They have a culture, like you can tell that those guys work. I mean, they work. And then they were able to have a niche recruiting wise, be able to fall in behind that.
Yeah.
Their tremendous success, in Australia and overseas. And so I think it's developing a strong culture that attracts more talented people through the fact that obviously you're having more success, which then will attract more people. I think big thing we want to be great in is development. So, you have to be able to have where people can see improvement, whether it be through their naked eye or through numbers, they can see improvement in individuals and in the program. And then how can you try to figure out a way to develop a recruiting niche? It's huge. I mean, it's all this is about is players, and I mean, Gonzaga, if you look at the teams that have had sustained success in our conference, Gonzaga, nobody recruits internationally better than Gonzaga. Nobody. And now you can make an argument that nobody's recruiting transfers better than Gonzaga. So now they're adding 2 niches, which is making them the powerful program. And then now they're taking it a step, they've continued to develop their niche. Now they're getting top 10 players in the country out of high school, but they started their niche with international, and then that led to transfers. And then that led to now they're getting the best of the best out of high school. And so, and then you look at St. Mary's, their niche, Australia, they're getting the best players out of Australia. Nobody's beating them in the country. Yeah. Nobody's beating them.
So true.
And then you look at BYU, and the LDS, that's their niche.
Yeah.
And so where can we develop a niche? What can our niche be? And that's really led me to think, that transfers is a great niche for us. Not that I want to be quote unquote transfer you.
Sure.
But I think, if you look at some of the success that we've had with certain players, Isaiah Pinero was at, quote unquote, a lower level at Portland State and wanted a higher level. So he comes to the 8th ranked conference in the country. Isaiah Wright, our starting point guard that year, was at Utah. He was playing like 13 a game, 13 minutes a game.
Sure.
Averaged like 2.1 points a game. Wanted an opportunity, to step down.
Yeah.
Not take that far of a step down.
Yeah.
The West Coast Conference is not all that much different than the Pac-12.
Not at all. Yeah.
But it provided him an opportunity to have the ball in his hands, to be our leader, to be our playmaker, and he had a great 2-year career. And so I think transfers can be. I think the University of San Diego, with our education, you're getting a top 100 degree. So if you transfer from somewhere else, you're getting an elite degree, and you're playing in one of the best conferences in the country. So I think that can be an attractive thing to people that are looking for a change.
Also attractive is how beautiful the campus is.
Yeah.
The great Sam Scholl joins us, University of San Diego head coach. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. I'm on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. I saw you were on a Zoom call recently with Coach Fizdale.
Yeah.
What was that all like?
It was extremely powerful because he was able to give our whole team what it's like being a black man and what it's like being a black man at the University of San Diego, because he wore our uniform. And so he just shared some of his experiences, that of things, some injustices that happened to him while he was in San Diego. And, and you just looked around the screen and the guys' eyes are like this. I mean, they're so dialed in, and he just gave us time to listen, and then therefore we learn, and then now we'll go and impact change in our own worlds, starting in our own world, starting with ourselves, with our own families, with our team and our locker room, and then into our neighborhoods and our neighborhoods, and being our main neighborhood, our campus, improving those feelings, here on campus at the University of San Diego. And so, I mean, he's just such a powerful voice. I mean, just a powerful voice in all areas. And we spent the last 30, 40 minutes and he's was a powerful voice for, the development of our team and what we need to be focused on, and what LeBron did and what D Wade did. I mean, it's just such wisdom. I mean, anytime you talk to Fizz, you're just going to get some amazing wisdom that's really going to impact your life.
And what's amazing about Fizz and his family and his wife is they give back so much. It's so important to the fabric of their family, and we all see it. Anybody that knows college or basketball in general sees the work that the Fizdale family is doing, and it's super, super commendable. Coach, why does being at San Diego and succeeding here mean so much to you?
Because I am a Torero. Yeah, I'm a 2001 graduate, and that's one of my main identities in my life is that I'm a Torero, and the amazing things that this university has done in my life, and I want to have an opportunity to give back and have our players and our program impact the world in many positive ways, and impact the city of San Diego and impact our community, and so that's the humbling opportunity that I have a chance to be a part of each and every day. And I do not take that lightly. I mean, that is, again, the feeling I have every morning is that humbling opportunity I am to be a leader on an amazing campus amongst many amazing, talented leaders all over our campus, through our faculty, through our president, through our athletic director, and through all the students that are so talented in so many ways.
Sam, my last question for you, and super grateful to have you with us. I'm Bryan Fenley. Sam is, of course, the head coach for the University of San Diego. And when you look at the chance to reunite with your team, when that moment comes, give us a sneak peek of how much joy you are going to have when you're able to reunite with your guys in person again.
I mean, that has been like at the forefront of my mind. I've been excited. I told the guys, and with all these Zooms are great. I mean, they're great, and they help in this day and age that we're in right now, and what we're dealing with the pandemic. But they're starting to grow stale. They're starting to grow stale because you don't have just that face-to-face interaction. Sure. So that is built to the excitement. I told our guys that that's what I'm most excited about. I don't really have a lot of anxiousness. You know, I'm excited about it, but I don't have a lot of anxiousness of, oh, we got to get on the floor and we got to start working on our defense, or we got to start working on our offense. Like, you know, I'm excited about that, but my anxiousness falls with, and urgency falls with that first time. And I have a pretty decent sized back area at my house where we're going to be able to be 6 feet apart with masks on, but just be together.
Yes.
And then start to learn about each other and to start build an atmosphere in our locker room and anywhere we are together of care and acceptance, and building to be kind teammates to each other. That's the thing that I'm most thrilled about, and you know, have the countdown in my mind to when that day is going to be able to occur.
Sam Scholl, the quintessential family man, and that trickles to his team. I am so stoked for that moment for you, Sam, and getting the Toreros all together and seeing all these new faces that you are going to implement into your roster. And I can't wait for you to take off and get back to that success that I have no doubt in my mind you will reach in the near future. Sam Scholl, thanks so much for doing this.
Bryan, thank you so much. It really means a lot to our program that you would take the time to hear a little bit more about us. So thank you very much about it.